Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Bleav.
Doesn't matter if you were an Indian or if you're a Warhawk.
The ULM mention is the greatest. You'd hope for the best as a ULM fan, but
this is the Bleav in the Warhawks podcast with hosts Dusty Thibodeaux and Chase Regian.
Chase, you always have such great insight.
Dibs is going to bleep it all.
What are these guys always talking about?
We talk a lot about food on this podcast, and I'm going to continue to do so.
Really, really appreciative of the people and the community and the way that they've backed us up.
Nailed the introduction, by the way. Awesome.
Thanks,
I love
Fish.
it.
Chase, final non-conference game getting ready to come out. We're headed to Natchitoches.
I'm sure a lot of Warhawk fans may think that we are headed to Natchitoches.
That's actually part of my preview, was seeing a team that's purple called Northwestern. A lot of fans are looking forward to their old Southland Conference game in Natchitoches, Louisiana.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hilarious irony.
I think it's a great test though, to step out non-conference, go against P4 of the Big Ten. Haven't had much success. 0-4 against them. Played Iowa State last, and it didn't go so well.
Yeah, we haven't had much success against P4 teams in the last 11 years. Been over a decade.
Is this where your chest is black and blue from beating on it? From being
I've told multiple people I started the last game that we beat a P4 opponent. Yeah, absolutely. In Malone too.
That's right, it was.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't remember if they came to us or we went there first.
I got poked in the eye, had a bloody eye the whole game. It was badass, dude.
That's nasty.
It was awesome.
Is that what they mean by offensive linemen being nasty?
And then I got to wear a visor for the next year. It was great.
Hopefully everybody gave you shit about it. Chase, I see you wearing the good old Monroe moccasins. Are you a fan of the moccasins? Are you a fan of hockey?
I've never paid attention a lick. I've been to a game and bought this sweatshirt on their third game ever, but I couldn't tell you if they were good or bad. I saw that they have some awesome names for those guys, but I unfortunately not even anything close to a hockey fan.
For shame. Just like we got to get you broken into baseball, we'll have to get you introduced to hockey, like real hockey where you understand it. No.
I went to the game, didn't know anything. We bought a sweatshirt and left at halftime. It's an awesome sweatshirt, though. I love the logo.
But yeah.
Oh, half period. What is it? I don't know.
Intermission.
Sure.
So while we're on an intermission, we get to bring in our great guest for the week. He's a guy from Sports Illustrated and is on the Bleav in Northwestern podcast, part of the Bleav network. That would be Zach Koons, to talk to us about these Wildcats. Welcome in, Zach.
Yeah, pumped to be here. I can't say I have much depth of knowledge about Louisiana Monroe, but that's why I'm coming to you two. Hopefully I can give you guys and your listeners a little bit to know about the Northwestern school that plays in the Midwest that has nothing to do with anything north or west. We'll be on the east side of campus, right along Lake Michigan, if that helps at all. I'll just keep throwing more cardinal directions at you guys. But I'm pumped to be here to talk about the game.
It's all north us. Hey,
yeah,
did you understand our reference?
Sure, whoever.
Did you understand our reference, Zach, to Northwestern when we said Northwestern in purple?
I was pretty sure, and then I got to admit I did Google, but I was like, I think they're talking about Northwestern State, and I was like, I think Northwestern State is in Louisiana,
and the city is not spelled Natchitoches, but that's how you spell it.
Yeah, that threw me for a loop. I went to Google Northwestern State. That was the theory I went off of, and then would have never guessed that was how the city was spelled, admittedly.
Love spreading the Cajun culture all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's actually French, though. But In any case, this is a weird game to begin with. This was the player to be named later. Apparently, ULM had a game against Nebraska scheduled. Nebraska didn't want to face the Warhawks for whatever reason. So they traded us to Northwestern. We're getting 2 checks for the game. I love that story as is. At a high level, what's the feeling coming in? When you saw that schedule drop there, Zach, what'd you think when you saw this little bird L looking thing on the logoed schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I think Northwestern is always, I don't know, they tend to mix around non-conference schedules pretty regularly, but like it tends to be a school in the Midwest. Like they've played Miami of Ohio. We're always good for an FCS matchup against Western Illinois, Eastern Illinois. And then this year, the non-conference opponents are Tulane and Louisiana Monroe. So I don't really know where that came from. I mean, of course, I feel like we're in this strange time of talking about in power conferences, whether or not like it's worth scheduling another power conference team out of conference. The short answer to that is that it's not, until the college playoff committee determines that it is. So I think Northwestern kind of approaches these games by trying to spread the wealth around a little bit. They've got Colorado coming to Evanston for the opening of the new stadium next year, but then South Dakota State, and then in a couple of years, I think it's like East Carolina and Holy Cross. So I don't know. I think Northwestern just kind of trying to take the tour around the country, and certainly I can't say that I'm well versed in Louisiana Monroe football history, but not a program that I recognized, a team that I recognized, and I think Northwestern didn't want a team that necessarily could just steamroll over, but wanted a team that would test them a little bit.
Hey, I appreciate that. Thanks, Zach. That was very kind of you. I definitely hope that they continue to schedule G5 opponents. I think it's, helpful for FBS. I think it's a great thing to do in general, and we really appreciate the money. You talked about Evanston. I've always heard, and if I'm being honest, Zach, if we're both learning stuff about each other's institutions, I've always thought Northwestern was in Chicago until preseason, and Tibbs told me it's in Evanston, which is about an hour north. Am I right?
Yeah. I'd say like on a really good day, you could maybe get there in 45 minutes on the L. But I think down to the loop, if we're really talking about like Chicago, yeah, at least an hour north. Very much a northern suburb.
And this year, you're not playing in your normal stadium, right? I've heard you're on the side of a lake.
Yeah, so for
stadium.
Yeah, that's certainly what people like to say. So it's where the
that was taking a shot. I wasn't trying to take a shot.
No, you're no, you're good. I could tell from you it was from a place of genuine curiosity. Yeah. But yeah, no. So for the last 2 seasons now, so this is the second season of kind of this lakeside stadium experiment, and it's essentially it's where Northwestern plays men and women's soccer. It's where they play lacrosse. And occasionally was where the football team would practice. They now have a multi-$100 million training facility that's indoors, so they're not as often out here on the lake. But they essentially souped this up last year and created a capacity of about 12,000 people, and have like really kind of like built it out and tried to build in these tailgating options and like getting bars and all these like club and corporate suites to try and like make it a little bit more legitimate. But this is all for the plan to eventually go back into the renovated Ryan Field, which is the stadium that's being built right on top of where the old one was, set to open next year. Everything seems to be on schedule. I get like photo updates and there are some like good folks on the ground who are taking pictures, giving tours, but we'll see. I think they're going to be a little bit up against it when it comes time to actually be ready to open the stadium.
Chase, I looked at you the same time when he said 12,000, and we're both Texas guys. I'm like, that's like a junior high stadium for us, man.
Yeah, my high school holds more than that. No offense, Zach. But I mean, I'm sure you have to average more than 12,000 at Northwestern for a game in the old stadium.
Yeah. You would be surprised. I would need a second here to pull up numbers, but I would say like generally over the last couple years, and it's been a downswing in performance certainly since 2020, apart from kind of the outlier year in David Braun's first year at the helm when he kind of came in right at the buzzer. I would say regularly between 20 to 35,000, but it kind of depends, and quite often I think Northwestern and Evanston has gotten kind of the reputation that I know I'll steal from the Fox Big Noon Kickoff guys of calling it Sleepy Evanston, and it tends to catch quite a few Big Ten teams unawares when they pull up for an 11 a.m. kickoff and the stadium is not full. And a lot of the times the opposing fan bases from Wisconsin, from Nebraska, there will be generally more of those fans there than I would say Northwestern.
That sounds real similar, doesn't it, Tibbs?
It does. There's a lot of,
feel like we're the
Northwestern
Northwestern of the Sun Belt.
Yeah. So there's a lot of teams that don't like coming to Malone Stadium, our home stadium in Monroe. It's kind of weird, kind of hard to get there. And a lot of the teams are like unable to kind of adjust because while we had 21,000 on paper this past weekend, we probably had 12,000, a good solid crowd, but there's just not much atmosphere. There's not much crowd noise. The students are getting involved because they're right there at the visitors bench, but there's just not really a whole lot of noise. And a lot of teams can't really cope with that. And we saw that last year. James Madison, who was a favorite to win the conference, came in and just went down. I mean, just unable to really adjust and play well.
Yeah, we'll teach you a little bit, Zach, here about the Malone House of Pain, as it's referred to recently. It's the House of Pain because the visiting locker room was built in the 70s and has not changed. I mean, you get splinters if you sit too long on those on those seats. And then there's no training area for opposing teams, so they have to go out like into the open, like right outside the stadium, and they set up their training tables there. It's a rough, desolate place for a team to come to, but great if you're a home fan. But if you're an away fan, brother, it's rough.
Is there any sort of like plan in the future to do a little upgrade? I know I'm kind of coming down off my like perch of power for money,
hundreds of millions of dollars to put on.
Correct. So yeah, let me
shot,
check my privilege at the door there. Yeah,
maybe in like 50 years or so. I think that would be we are in a much different financial spot to where that money would be used in other places. And as long as the league doesn't reprimand us for it, we're moving on. Jeb, did you say that's fair?
That's very appropriately well said. Yeah. That's always the interesting thing of kind of hearing and seeing how the other half lives, so to say, we have to play in this small little stadium. And, when everything I've read, seen, and heard is that this temporary stadium, there's been some fans even going, hey, can we just kind of keep this and maybe spruce it up a little bit more, but, kind of keep this. They like the intimacy of it.
People love it. I would say for the most part, I would say the people that are really positive on it are the ones who are not Northwestern affiliated. I think a lot of the national media, really kind of like jumped on the fact that they thought that it was this really cool setup. And I mean, it's gorgeous. Like it's right along the lake. You can get as many of the aerial drone shots that you want of the city to make it seem way closer than it actually is when it is literally an hour plus away on the train. But I would say from a personal standpoint, I've been to games. I've been to games as a fan. I've been as a media member. I largely feel like to be taken seriously in the Big Ten and to like actually be able to seat people comfortably and to let in opposing fans. And maybe that's something Northwestern doesn't want. They don't want the Nebraskas and Wisconsins coming in and raiding the home stadium. It just needs to be a real stadium. Like it's not equipped. It's not so much the size, but I mean, it looks like it was put together in a matter of 6 months. And that's because because Northwestern didn't have a plan for a home field until a few months before kickoff of 2024. So I'm very in favor of the new stadium. I think certainly people would express some frustration at the amount of money, close to however many millions of dollars, $700 million, I think was around what Northwestern is spending. I think they'd like to see results on the field to see exactly where that money is getting them. But I am largely in favor of going and building this new state-of-the-art setup that Northwestern seems to have going.
Moderate success so far early on in the season, sitting at 2-2 coming into this game. Is that kind of what you expected, or did you think that maybe that Tulane game was one that got away and you should be 3-1? Do you feel like this should be a 4-0 team, or what's kind of the feeling of this team?
Yeah, I predicted before the season 5-7 for Northwestern this year. I think I would say people started to get kind of loftier expectations of what Northwestern should be able to accomplish in the third year under a head coach and offensive coordinator who went out and got a transfer quarterback in Preston Stone that they got to handpick out of the portal. They got him during the December window, inserted him in, got him a top wide receiver from the FCS level in Griffin Wilde. I think people had a lot better expectations based on the quarterback play of last year and really just what exactly this team could be. And I never really bought into that. I thought it was always going to be around 5-7, maybe 6-6, scrapping for a bowl game. And at this point of the season, I think I had picked them to be 3-1 before the season started. I thought they would challenge Tulane. I knew Tulane was very, very good. I think John Summerall is soon to be the head coach at a Power 4 school, perhaps one to the southeast in Gainesville. But I would say that when Northwestern came out for that game and the way that they lost that game, where it was self-inflicted mistakes, it was 5 turnovers by the sterling quarterback that they thought was really going to kind of deliver this offense from the woes of the last couple of years. That was a real disappointment and a real reality check for what I think people thought this team could accomplish. All of that to be said, at 2-2, you've beaten up on an FCS school and UCLA, which is definitely the worst team in the Big Ten, may not win a game this season. So, and then you have losses to Tulane that has college football playoff aspirations, and I think has a real argument to get that group of 5 spot. And then you have Oregon, who looks as good, if not better, than they did last year when they had a ton of questions at quarterback in Dante Moore. They look good to go. And having watched both of those games, Northwestern was not in the class of either one of those teams. So I think we're kind of at the right spot at 2-2. And you have 2 games coming up against Louisiana Monroe, a game you fancy yourself winning. And then you have to go on the road and play Penn State. So are we going to be at 3-3 with half the season to play? That could be the case.
Yeah, I don't know if Florida wants another Louisiana head coach though after the next experience gone. Yeah, UCLA looks rough, dude. I thought they were going to be a lot better than what they are, and I didn't think that. Obviously, 17-14, you get the win. It's a boring ass game, and I really, to be honest, when we had looked at this game preseason, I was really excited for Preston Stone. I really thought he could do something. I thought he looked. Before he got hurt at SMU, I thought he looked like the guy and looked like he could be the guy. And obviously he struggled. You know, I mean, he's 4 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. When that's lopsided, that really is going to hurt your team, hurt your offense. What do you think's been the problem for that offense? I mean, you're known for running the ball. You're really not running the ball even that great. You're not passing like you're known for your offensive lineman production and how they do in the league and different things like that. But what's gone wrong this year?
Yeah, I think it's a number of factors, and part of what I think I've attributed it to, and it's kind of a couple different things I could touch on. From a Preston Stone standpoint, I frankly just don't think that when he came out for that Tulane game, and you mentioned the 6 interceptions on the season, those all came in the Tulane and Oregon games. So I think against those defenses, he, number one, struggles under pressure. And I think that became pretty clear, especially against Tulane. There was kind of an inability to assess risk and what risk was worth taking in that game, where he had a couple balls that were just thrown up into the air that had really no chance, like no opportunity to be caught by a Northwestern receiver. And I think that really, to me, looked like somebody who hadn't played football in 9 to 11 months, which was the case because he was coming off the injury the season prior. Then he steps in for the first couple games for SMU in their first year in the ACC and then got benched and then never played again. So I think like over the course of that kind of stretch when he was recovering from that injury, he'd only played 2.5 games for SMU and then came out and to me looked like somebody who just didn't quite have the feel for live football action. I think Northwestern's offensive line this year actually has improved and now also kind of looks the part of the Big Ten offensive line that they've been known for in the past. There was a real emphasis this season from David Braun and Zach Lujan on just going and getting bigger guys. Like there was a big comparison that was kind of going around in week 1 about how the average height and weight of the Northwestern offensive lineman is actually taller and heavier than the Chicago Bears offensive line this year, which is kind of incredible to think about. And they've really had a lot of continuity there. And I think they're finally starting to kind of get their bread and butter with the running game. Cam Porter, who was expected to be kind of the bell cow back for the Wildcats this year, went down with a season-ending injury in the game against Western Illinois. So that's kind of left a little bit of a void that now it seems like second-year guy Caleb Komolafe is going to step in and fill. He was really good against UCLA, really got a heavy workload because I think Northwestern kind of realized over the first couple games that it was putting too much control, too much into the hands of Preston Stone. And I think they wanted to dial that back a little bit, simplify things for this game against UCLA. And in the first half, Northwestern had 3 offensive drives. They kicked a field goal and they scored 2 touchdowns. It was the second half where I think when up 17-3 against a team like UCLA that they'd kind of been pounding over and over and over again on the ground, Northwestern thought it could get away with that and kind of just salt the game away. That wasn't the case. UCLA showed a little bit of fight and Northwestern got really complacent. And that, I think, fell a little bit more on the play calling and kind of the conservative nature of the coaches. And then the last thing I just want to say here about the offense and why it hasn't quite been gelling is the receiver depth. Griffin Wilde comes in from South Dakota State, highly touted at the FCS level. Maybe some question about how he was going to be when adjusting to the Big Ten game. He's been excellent. He is a great player, really operates well, kind of in that like 10 to 15 to 17 yard range. So he really just kind of like makes his living just settling down in between levels of a zone defense. Worked really well off of play action with Preston Stone against UCLA. He looks great. Past that, this Northwestern team does not have a reliable second wide receiver. They just kind of made a complete line change this last week, subbing out the 2 guys that had been kind of in the mix for the first 3 games. That's Ricky Amarazi and Frank Covey IV. They kind of just got pushed to the side, had way lower snap counts. In come Drew Wagner, who is a walk-on, who is now on full scholarship, and Hayden Elegon II. Those guys took on a lot more reps. They combined, I think, for 3 catches and -6 yards in this last game against UCLA. There's been an issue with these guys getting separation, being able to be kind of a positive release for Stone. And so I don't think all of the blame can be put on the quarterback when it's kind of an amalgamation of the whole offense.
My head still hurts thinking of UCLA in the Big Ten.
Mine too.
It took me by surprise when you said it, honestly. I totally forgot about it.
Yeah. And they are a dumpster fire, by the way.
Really rough. And I thought poorly coached and like ready to be They didn't seem ready when they played Northwestern. They got completely manhandled on both the offensive and defensive lines. That had no business being a 3-point game. And Northwestern did its best to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
Telling you, it sounds similar, Tibbs.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, Zach, we talked about it earlier this week in an earlier episode. We talked about our defensive coordinator, Ernest Hill, screaming at head coach, offensive coordinator, interim AD, baseball, third base coach, and everything in between of Bryant Vincent. He's like, I got to defend this all week long in practice, and then I got to defend it on Saturday against Northwestern. When you've taken a look at these offenses, are they really that much similar that statement's kind of a fact?
Yeah, no, I do think so. I think when Northwestern was at its best against UCLA, that was in the first half, and it was this really nice mix of Zach Lujan, the offensive coordinator, came from South Dakota State and was kind of known for just kind of these like unique run packages and really had a ton of talent at the FCS level for guys who could get outside, run a lot in the screen game, jet sweeps, like that kind of like this fun speed with this big, fast, athletic offensive line. And I think they've been trying to build to what that could be. The thing is Preston Stone at SMU was a guy who liked to kind of just throw the ball as far down the field as he could. He really just had a cast of wide receivers at SMU, go routes, deep routes, and Preston Stone would just find them in man coverage. And that the reality is that that's not exactly what he's been asked to do at Northwestern. And I think what the ideal method was going to be was run the football and play action. And for the first 3 games, really not a whole lot of play action. And I think in that first half against UCLA, they got to get him a little bit more comfortable, and that kind of allowed the passing game to work. However, I do think, like you said, it's going to be a lot of inside zone. I think Northwestern now is, and I think the approach in the second half against UCLA concerned me a little bit because I think they're wary of putting too much in Preston Stone's hands. And the second that kind of became apparent, I'm now thinking, is Northwestern just going to kind of keep the ball on the ground when they think they can, like I think they believe they can against Monroe this weekend? Yeah, I think it's going to be a heavy dose of Caleb Komolafe and Joseph Hyman the second on the ground.
On the defensive side of the ball, you have the freak, Anto Saka. On the defensive line, he's a guy that might not statistically put up a lot. I think he has like 6 tackles on the season playing on the interior line. But he made the freak list. Is he really that much of a freak with that 36.5-inch vertical and the broad jump of 10.4?
Yeah, no, he I think is the real deal from an athletic standpoint. The real question that still remains, and coming into the season, the emphasis for him to be one of these guys who is going to get drafted in the first round, who fancies himself that caliber of player, was whether or not he could be a 3-down player. And through the first 4 games, he really hasn't been. And I think Northwestern fans have been largely disappointed by the output from the defensive line and the way that they got pushed around against Tulane and Oregon. I don't think that lays solely at the feet of Saka, but just for example, in this last game, talking about him being a 3-down kind of player, he played 31 of the 59 defensive snaps. To me, that very clearly illustrates that he is not quite there. I don't know whether it's from a conditioning standpoint or it's a concerted effort from the Northwestern coaching staff to work in kind of this deep defensive line that they do have. And I think Northwestern touts that as often as they can. There's a lot of guys who contribute. Aiden Hubbard on the other side is kind of the other name to watch. But I do wonder if Northwestern kind of sacrifices some of putting Saka in those opportunities to rack up those numbers a little bit more. for the sake of working in kind of those fresh legs and those fresh bodies. He did come up with a huge sack at the end of the UCLA game. He pretty much sealed it, and I think that could be something that really kind of jump starts him. But I would say, all in all, as things go, it's been a little bit of an underwhelming start for both him and the defensive line.
Zach, my question to you is real simple. Who's the best player on this team? And you can say an offensive lineman, by the way. Okay?
Or a special team.
No punters, no kickers. Well, I say that. I had to take it back last week, Zach. I hope y'all don't have to play Troy, because their kicker is good from 60. I promise. He's a dog.
Arkansas State.
I'm sorry.
Chase,
what did I say, Troy? My bad. I'm thinking Summerall.
Punters and kickers are people too, and just some justice for the two of them. No, I won't be naming Northwestern's punter or kicker. I think this is a really interesting question, because I think if you'd asked me ahead of the season, I probably would have said Anto Saka, and based on this start, I don't quite feel that way. I would say it is probably along the offensive line, and this feels kind of like the safe answer, but I think it's left tackle Caleb Tiernan. He is someone who's getting NFL draft buzz and is kind of the next in this line of Northwestern left tackles that's come through. He kind of came in right after Rashawn Slater, who's in the NFL, and unfortunately down for the year this season with the Chargers. But I think it's Caleb Tiernan. He's been really, really reliable at protecting Stone's blindside, and has done so for a number of years. Now, I'm certainly not going to get on here and act like I can fully analyze offensive line play. I recognize my limitations. I think Chase would probably be better versed in that. But I do think from a leadership standpoint, he has really just been, he's started all 3 years that he's kind of gotten the starting job. So he would be my choice. Honorable mention would probably be Griffin Wilde, the receiver. And those are kind of the two names that came to mind.
Yeah, Wilde's having a great year, and I appreciate you shouting an offensive line out. I made that assumption when I think about Northwestern, right? So I really just did that for my own gratification there. But yes, I will take a look this weekend. I'll report back if he's the real deal or not. Yeah, the other name I would. Sorry, Dusty. The other name I would mention to check out would be the center, Jackson Carcello. Was on PFF's All Big Ten team for the second or third time this season already. Was kind of somebody who last year was a little bit young, a little bit inexperienced, working with some quarterbacks too who were struggling. So I don't think he really quite popped, and he seems to have really put in the work this offseason and has been rewarded for it.
I didn't write down the name because I was talking about the size of the offensive line there of Northwestern. There's a guy that's 6'8", 335.
I believe that's Tiernan. Let me double check this here. But
and they have a 6'7", 325 guy, Chase.
Yeah, so that 6'7", 325 is Tiernan. Who is the 6'8" guy on the line? This is a good question. You're stumping me right now.
Xavier
Tiernan looks terrifying.
Yeah, no, Tiernan's a big guy. Xavier Gray, actually, interesting that you brought him up. The kind of one of the positions that's been unsettled for Northwestern is right tackle. And Xavier Gray was brought in from Liberty to potentially compete for that role. He's kind of fallen out of the mix. It's been a rotation, really, of Martez Lewis and Deuce McGuire, who have kind of picked up that mantle. So, yeah, Xavier Gray will not be out there. So you'll only have to manage the 6'7", 325, if that makes you guys feel any better.
So he's a busser. You know a busser? That's where your biggest kids are the first ones off the bus. So you assume everyone else is that size as well.
Yeah, but ours are 6'5". Theirs are 6'8". That's the problem.
And that I would say also has great footwork, like great fundamentals. I would be surprised if Tiernan was not playing in the NFL in the coming years.
A lot of ULM fans are making the trek to Chicago. What is there around the stadium? What is there to do? What's some game day traditions they need to check out? what are we looking at there in Evanston?
Yeah, I would say around the stadium, but so like stadium is right there on campus. The temporary setup is the former stadium is like a solid like mile walk from where campus is. So you're kind of right there, and I mean it is a gorgeous campus right there, like on the Lakeville. It's just kind of this gorgeous grassy area, and you're right on Lake Michigan. So you really can't beat that if you just want to hang out there, bring a couple beverages. That would be my recommendation. I think downtown Evanston, I wouldn't say there's like a ton going on. It is like a pretty residential place. So the students will kind of tailgate off campus, and I as I said, it is sort of the Sleepy Evanston nickname is I think well earned. So yeah, I recommend spending some time on the lake, checking out what they have going on at the temporary stadium. I actually haven't been this season, so I don't know if they've added anything different from last year. But I think that would be a good setup. And if not, like you can go into Chicago. It's a great city. There's a ton to do. Maybe there will be playoff baseball going on that weekend if the Cubs stay alive. Of course, I might jinx that by the time this is posted, but they're going to game 3. But yeah, I would recommend getting down to the city for sure if you have some time.
Zach, you answered that like a skinny person. What he's trying to ask you is, where should these people eat? No, you didn't mention pizza. You didn't mention hot dogs. I thought that's what you guys were known for.
Yeah, I would say that. I wouldn't say that Evanston was the first thing to come to mind. I've always been a Lou Malnati's guy when it comes to deep dish. That's kind of and I admitted to you guys before we started recording that I'm not from the Chicago area. So that's a very like transplant take to have. I think Gino's East is the other big pizza place that I would recommend. There are a couple good hot dog places, and I hope that they're still open. Edzo's would be a big recommendation. Burgers and hot dogs, you can't go wrong. That's right in Evanston. And then my favorite place to always hang out, and I've heard some mixed things lately, but I don't know. Maybe I'll run into some Louisiana Monroe fans. Bat 17 in Evanston, classic sports bar, great food, great drinks. There you go. Those are my recommendations.
Line on the game is currently sitting at Northwestern favored by 11.5. Fair? Do you think that's a cover, or do you think that it could be a little bit dicey and maybe even go the Warhawks' way?
I think Northwestern is going to cover. I feel after I took some time away from the UCLA game, and I think watching the second half kind of collapses too far, but the second half let down. I was feeling a little bit worse about how Northwestern was going to fare this season, especially against Monroe. Took some time, took a few days. I think Northwestern, one thing that they've been able to do in David Braun's tenure is beat the teams that they're supposed to beat and beat them pretty handily. So I think that will be the case. I had written down, and I said this on a podcast I recorded earlier today, 27-7. Something around that range. I think Northwestern's defense really does have a leg up here. I just don't see Monroe really being able to throw the ball. And I think if you're trying to put the ball on the ground, Northwestern hasn't gotten torched by an opposing running back yet. They really struggle against mobile quarterbacks. And so Jake Retzloff at Tulane and Nico Iamaleava at UCLA, both huge problems for Northwestern. I know Monroe doesn't really have that as much when it comes to Aiden Armenta. So I find it hard to believe that Monroe will be able to score too much in this game. It's just a matter of which version of the Northwestern offense we get.
I think that's so fair. Tibbs?
I was hammering the under because I just think that it's not going to be a high scoring affair.
No,
I would agree.
I wouldn't see, you're right, Zach. I think everything you said. I think ULM's defense, I had this game at like 21-10, and so I know that's not a cover, but still I think that it's I think the ULM offense is, you're right, is going to struggle with the pass, and then they got to go against a really good defensive line, really good deep defensive line. So I think you'll see a lot of struggles out of us offensively. I think that ULM can rush the passer decently on the P4 level. We don't talk about Bama, what happened at Bama, so we just don't do that. But I think from what they showed last week and what I think they can be, they're going to play the run decent. The problem is, are they going to play the run decent for 4 quarters? And that's going to be really the hard part for them. I hope this doesn't jump out to a big lead game, because I don't think that's a game that ULM can win. And in the eyes of a ULM fan, I think the best case scenario is to go into halftime 7-7.
And then the real action starts next week, traveling to the beach to take on the Beach Chickens.
Yeah, thank you for the paycheck, Zach. We're trying to get get in the thick of conference. That's what we're trying to do, honestly.
No, I completely understand. I understand the game, and that certainly should be where the focus lies. But I don't know. Maybe if it goes into halftime 7-7, there's going to be a lot of stress in those fans on Saturday.
Be a lot of warm seats on that coaching staff, I'm sure. Yeah.
Or we get Braun to just recreate the infamous 0-0 end of regulation time with the fist in the air.
I wouldn't put it past. I wouldn't put it past this team. Yeah, but there's as Chase said, there's going to be a lot of hard questions if Northwestern finds itself in a close game, and God forbid that they drop this one.
And I just want to say, and Zach, I'm wondering if you're going to agree with this. This is likely going to be a boring ass game.
I would say that. I'm interested. You kind of mentioned that Northwestern UCLA was ugly and boring, and it was at times. I thought there was a little bit of excitement, but look, if you don't like low scoring defense, run the ball 3 straight downs, maybe run the ball on first down right after that, then you don't like the Big Ten West. And that's what Northwestern is really trying to channel. And I'm just glad maybe we can induct Monroe as an honorary member of the now defunct Big Ten West.
Awesome stuff, Zach. Tell people where they can get some more of the Bleav in Northwestern and more of your work with Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, so you can find Bleav in Northwestern podcast on Apple, Spotify. Drop the show a like, leave it a review. Send me hate mail at Zach Koons on X or Blue Sky. My email, zach.koons@si.com. And then, I write a weekly kind of best games to watch for our college football team at Sports Illustrated. Northwestern, Louisiana Monroe, sadly not on the list this week. Already submitted, and it couldn't.
Come on, Zach, that's bull, dude.
It couldn't quite make the cut. I tried.
If this game happened in the 50s, I'm telling you, it'd be most watched TV.
I'd be very quickly getting called into a one-on-one with my editor had I submitted that as a serious contender. And you can check out all of the work we're doing, si.com/college football. Pat Forty and Brian Fisher are 2 of the best in the business, and you'll want to read them every week. They're covering college football nationally, and I help out with their stories sometimes. So definitely check us out.
Long live the G5 or G6 or whatever we're up to now there, Chase.
Who knows, dude? I forgot UCLA was in the Big Ten, so I got no clue at this point.
All right, Chase. So much fun. We'll do it again post-game.
Yes, sir.